welcome to my channel. My name is Muscle Mommy and I'm going to talk to you about how I lost 60 pounds. So just before we begin, I am making a lot of changes to my channel, so if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, make sure that you're hitting it below. And disclaimer, although I'm a certified personal trainer, I am not a licensed healthcare professional, so the contents in this video should not be used as a point of care. Rather, it should be used for educational and informational purposes only. And I am putting out a trigger warning that some contents in this video may be sensitive to some viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. So if you guys have been following my Instagram for quite a bit, I have been posting a lot of before and after pictures of my weight loss transformation. I have significantly transformed my approach to weight loss, my approach to fitness, and my comfort levels around food. And that is really what I'm going to be sharing today. If you guys just want to cut to the chase and listen to what exactly I did to lose the weight, then I will post the timestamp below. But before I begin, I do feel like I need to explain what I did to actually gain the weight. Now, this feels like $1 million question to me.
Not fat, I'm festively plump.
Now, I never really had a weight-related issue until a few years after I hit puberty. Now, at this time, I was diagnosed with PCOS and epilepsy. So for those of you who don't know what PCOS is essentially a hormonal condition that causes the ovaries to produce an abnormal amount of androgens and male sex hormones. Some of the symptoms of PCOS are missed, irregular, or very light periods, ovaries that produce many cysts, excess body hair, especially on the chest, stomach, and back, referred to as hirsutism, weight gain, especially around the belly, acne or oily skin, male pattern baldness or thinning hair, and infertility. Now, women with PCOS are often insulin resistant, similar to women who are type 2 diabetics. Now, what usually happens to the body after you consume food? So usually after you consume a food rich in carbohydrates, your insulin and blood sugar levels rise, but should eventually come down after a period of time. Now, women who are insulin resistant or type 2 diabetics, what happens is the sugar levels will come down, but the insulin levels will remain high in the bloodstream. Now, as a result of this, what tends to occur is that the increase in insulin levels in the bloodstream causes inflammation in the body, which leads to weight gain. Now, inflammation is a known precursor to weight gain, and as a result, people with PCOS tend to experience this unexplained weight gain. So that could have been one of the issues that I was experiencing at the time, and I was just not very cognizant of it because I wasn't really paying attention to what I was putting into my body. Similar to PCOS, I was also diagnosed with juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. Now, this epilepsy is just a generalized epilepsy, which is characterized by jerking movements of both the arms and the legs while the individual who is experiencing the seizure remains unconscious. Now, similar to PCOS, epilepsy can actually cause undue stress in the brain due to coming from these large insulin spikes. This is why the ketogenic diet is so popular among epileptics, and it was actually used as a form of treatment to reduce the reoccurrence of seizures in epileptics. Now I'll go over everything that I did to actually lose weight. So this was sort of my weight loss roller coaster journey that I started doing as I started losing weight. So the first thing that I did to lose weight is in 2012, I started going on low carb diets. Atkins diet was really popularized at the time by Dr. Robert C. Atkins and the Kardashians. So that's the only thing that I really knew that quote unquote worked. I would lose about 10 to 15 pounds of weight by doing this consistently for maybe a few weeks or so, and then going back to my normal pattern of eating because I couldn't keep up with it. After I started doing the low carb diet, I was introduced to the super popular keto diet. I was also doing intermittent fasting at the time, so I was shortening my window to a 4 to 6 hour eating window followed by a 16 to 18 hour fasting window. So how much weight did I actually lose from doing the keto diet? Now, I lost around 40 to 45 pounds doing this diet in a very short amount of time. But here's the biggest but. Of the 40 to 45 pounds that I lost doing the keto diet, I regained at least 30 to 35 pounds. So the keto diet was a very short-term fix. It introduced me to the world of how to diet, how to stick to certain macro goals. Now, I'm not here to bash the keto diet. Keto was a very short-term fix, and it's something that I'll probably never go back to as a form of weight loss ever again in my life. As a result of these super restrictive diets like keto, low carb, constantly cycling on and off these diets, what ended up happening is that I started developing an eating disorder. So I started having constant anxiety around food. I couldn't be trusted around food. I couldn't even have junk food in the home. That I couldn't be trusted around foods that were considered off limits in the low carb and keto industry. I was afraid that one bite of like chips, or like just like being close to a bag of chips, or being close to chocolate or something like that, one bite would lead to a full-fledged binge for at least a day, a few days, a weekend, and then I would go back to feeling super guilty about it, and then go back to days of just trying to intermittent fast it off, trying to starve myself back just to lose the weight that I ate as like a form of punishment. And I wasn't comfortable doing that, and I was getting mentally exhausted with living that type of lifestyle. And so because I couldn't really sustain these diets, I realized over time that I was ignoring one of the biggest underlying factors when it came to my weight loss and when it came to food in general. I never addressed the fact that I just didn't have the greatest relationship with food, and I largely feel like it was as a result of these restrictive dieting patterns that caused me to feel like I was losing control, because I kept telling myself that I'm not allowed to have these things because it is not low carb, it is not keto. So I got to a point in my keto journey where I was just so sick and tired of constantly feeling hungry, tired, and I got to a point where I was actually losing a lot of hair from the extreme restrictions in calories, and just from not sleeping well, the hunger, the constant fatigue. I'm not someone that generally enjoys large amounts of meat like the general population, so I don't know, I just didn't enjoy eating that much meat and fat consistently. It felt so unhealthy, and it just didn't make sense to my brain that eating things like cheese, I guess eating things like salmon and things like that was okay, but honestly, like eating things like cheese and bacon all the time, and that's the way I did keto, and I feel like that's the way a lot of people do start with keto. I just felt like it wasn't healthy and it wasn't right, so I couldn't continue doing that. Not to mention the fact that I started balding at some point with keto, and that was freaking scary, so I was just like, no. So this is where I started to switch my diet back to incorporate what I call the standard bodybuilding diet, where I would eat things like Ezekiel bread, Greek yogurt, low-fat meat like chicken, turkey, eggs, egg whites, oatmeal. At this point, I was sort of eating intuitively, so I wasn't really tracking my macros or my calories. So here's the thing though. This in itself was a little bit more freeing, but it still never addressed the ongoing issue that I had with binge eating. I still had a hard time being trusted around food because I never really addressed the binge eating disorder that I had. So it didn't matter whether I did a low carb, if I did keto, if I did a standard bodybuilding diet, even if I was consistent for 4 or 5 months and I forced myself to do this, I felt my mental and emotional state start to decline because I just never really addressed the issue and the discomfort that I had around being around junk food and just not feeling triggered, or that I'm gonna lose my sense of self-control. At some point I started shifting into veganism, so I became vegan for almost 1.5 years. At some point I actually couldn't handle it anymore, so I was driving myself nuts trying to figure out at every point of the hour of the day what I should be eating, what I shouldn't be eating. It was actually mentally insane what I was doing just to make sure I was hitting my macro goals. Right now, I focus on this technique called If It Fits Your Macros. Now, basically it's a concept where you allow yourself to eat as long as you're hitting your macro goals. So I eat about 35% carbs, 30% protein, and 35% fat. Times I'll switch it over to 35% protein, 35% carbs, and 35% fat. Now, the technique that I use to essentially lose weight is by going through periods of cutting and going through periods of reverse dieting. I will cut my calories in half for 4 to 6 weeks. So I will do this slowly over time. So say I'm starting at 2,000 calories. Over time, I will start decreasing 100 to 150 calories a week, depending on how my body feels, how my body's reacting to it. If I feel like it's ever too much, I won't go past the 6 weeks. I try to shorten the window to a 6-week mark, but I do start at a super high caloric intake, around 2,500 calories. So I'm starting at 2,500 calories and going down 100 and 150 calories each week. For about 4 to 6 weeks until I get to about 1,300 to 1,400. Now I'm only on those calories for like a week, so I am already starting with a large amount of calories, and then taking it down to 1,300 to 1,400 calories for a week won't significantly affect me. So I get to as low as I need to in terms of my calories, I'll start to implement my reverse. So at the same pace that I decrease my calories, I will increase it by 100 to 150 calories per week for about 6 to 12 weeks. Now I find that this has been the most freeing way to approach food, and has been an approach that I use to actually allow myself to lose weight at a healthy pace over time. I knew about this earlier. Like most people, I would probably be the first one to give up and not trust that a system like this would actually work for someone like me, because I'm just not genetically gifted. But what I did is I trained my body. Now, the number one advice I would have for anyone that's starting a fitness journey or a weight loss journey is to be consistent, but be consistent with a lifestyle that doesn't compromise your mental, emotional, and physical health. You can, over time, reverse the effects that you have with PCOS and any other weight-related issue. Because if you're going to do something for a short-term fix, it will be exactly that. It will be a short-term fix. It will be difficult to sustain, and you don't want to compromise your emotional, mental, and physical health just to lose weight. Find something that makes you happy, makes you stay in control, and makes you live your life to the full. So thank you so much for tuning in to my channel, and I will be posting more videos, so stay subscribed to my channel.